Hey YouTube. So I wanted to talk to you about skullcap and some mind-blowing shit that I found out about what's in the compounds in that plant. I initially bought skullcap as something to help with my lady's OCD because her medication sucks. She hates it. It doesn't work very well. We were looking for something that could be like potentially an add-on that can be taken long term. That's what we want to sort of move the needle. What would be ideal is to eliminate the pharmaceutical drug, but currently I have nothing in my knowledge base that says I have something that good that works that well. So we're not there. But because I had the idea, I say, well, I should be the test hamster. I'll go to the hippie store, buy the skullcap, and try it myself. And what happened with me is that I noticed that it made me more focused, and a herbal medication has never done that before for me. Only drugs like Adderall and Ritalin have, and I've been prescribed those or self-prescribed them in the past, and learned that they're a disaster and something I won't take. So when I felt that focus level like increase, I was like, whoa, what's going on? But what happened is that it faded into this kind of sleepy benzodiazepine type feel, which is what I did kind of expect from skullcap, because the natural hippie people would say that it's good for anxiety, OCD, and other sort of nervous disorders, right? But this led me to go, okay, obviously not for me, but the focus effect was really interesting. And so I go looking into the skullcap plant and what the hell is inside this plant, right? It turns out there's like something like 170 different compounds in it, and we only really understand 6 of them. And the other ones don't even have like names. They're just like compound 167. So I started looking at the top compounds and found out about Oroxylin A. And this appears to be a dopamine uptake reinhibitor, which would say that it works similar to Ritalin. And they had actually tried mouse trials of ADHD drugs for mice. There's this protocol for doing that, and it worked incredibly well. And I believe there's also a human trial, and it did really well. So I thought, okay, works the same way as Ritalin. That's interesting. I had to just go out and buy some. Again, thank God Nootropics Depot had some, and I generally will trust them to come up with an extract or whatever, like with the high quality, So I thought, okay, hopefully this is like the real deal. I took it the first day, and it's like I got like this, like kind of like tingling in my motor neurons, let's say, and which is like what you would get with Ritalin, but it just faded away really fast. And I was like, oh, cool. And then this focus just like came on me, just like, poof, like boom, you're there, you are there. And it wasn't like a motivated focus, like say Adderall will give you, where you're just like, yeah, let's do it. It was like I was in control of my own brain for the first time in my entire life. And I could sit there and do this stuff that was so boring, but it wasn't forcing my brain to do it. It was allowing my brain to do it. And what Ritalin does is it feels like it forces my brain a little bit too much, and I can get hyper focused on things, and that doesn't really work for me. So I liked the kind of focus that it gave me, but the initial dose of 100 milligrams was way too strong. I was like super focused all day long, but I was blown away by the focus part. The thing that sucked is that the sweating effect it was actually worse than Ritalin for like almost equivalent efficacy dose. And I was like, oh god damn it, I smell like a pig. And I was just hot, and I was like, yeah, they said it was like Ritalin. So what I did the next day is I took half the dose, and I still had a little bit of like the cerebral buzz, which isn't necessarily pleasant. It's just there. But I got like really good focus that day too. And so I continued to take it at the half dose, and I just kept getting the same effect. And it felt like at half the dose, I was getting the same sort of end level efficacy as Ritalin, but with less than half the side effect, like, amount, right? So I found it to be like pretty much the perfect drug for settling out my brain. It doesn't force my brain as much like Ritalin. Ritalin does that to such a degree that I feel like I start out with like kind of overconfident because the dopamine thing's happening, and it's also touching some parts that cocaine seems to touch. I get this overconfidence, I get super focused, and then as I'm coming off it, I get so burned out and grouchy and just I don't want to be around people. And so what goes up comes down, and it goes up a lot and it comes down a lot, and I don't like that character of it, which is why I don't take any of the drugs prescribed to me for ADHD. I tried them all, and I don't like the alteration of my personality. I don't like the agitation during come down because I become grouchy and snappy. I don't want to live my life like that. So with this stuff, when it wears off, it's just you gradually slide into just your pinball machine of a brain. It's almost as if there isn't even a come down at all. And the sort of the buzz you get, or the little bit of tension, let's say, that you would just get from a stimulant, let's just be honest, it just kind of also fades out as the day goes on. And for me, I have kind of a very slow metabolism with drugs, so this lasts for me all day long. I have to take it right in the morning, and then by the time I'm getting to sleep, then it's enough of it is out of my system that I can sleep just fine and have it not interfere with my sleep. But for a regular person without this, they might need to take it twice a day. But frankly, I love the way that it gets out of your system. It doesn't seem like a what comes up must go down kind of drug. So for me, it's perfection. So to say that I'm pleased is an understatement. Like, I feel like I've unlocked one of the last things that was really troubling me. And while it actually does another thing, it as far as my arthritis pain goes, from having misaligned bones and walking on them without correction for so long, it makes my arthritis pain disappear. And so that in itself was like, I don't know if that's a function of the internal body heat or if it was something else. So I went and looked into that, and apparently it acts on this receptor that is at kind of like the root of joint inflammation. And in fact, they haven't figured out how to target this receptor with the pharmaceutical drug yet. So they're actually messing around with a substance called wogonin, which comes from skullcap, another one of those things from skullcap, and it's supposed to be like the one of the most amazing arthritis pain relief discoveries in the last 20 years. So like, it holds that kind of promise. So I'm taking something that deals with two things that have been troubling me. So it's like, wow, I should buy like a pallet of this, just in case it gets turned into a pharmaceutical medication and I can no longer buy it for $20 a bottle and have to beg a doctor to give it to me. So this stuff is really powerful. There is a lot of research that needs to be done about skullcap, and it seems like it's got a variety of different amazing applications. So for ADHD, the Oroxylin A part of skullcap is, I would give it a thumbs up so far for now. I'll have to give you a long-term result, but let me get back to my lady friend. Now, I originally bought the skullcap to give it to her for OCD, and she also has like the worst neck pain because she has like a disc like screwed up like at the top, where you can't surgically fix it. Otherwise, you're probably gonna put the patient in a wheelchair. So she gets to live with that and take very strong pain medication for it, which doesn't really work all that great and has tons of side effects. And that's one of the things where I went, well, if I get a pain relieving effect, would maybe instead of trying the skullcap, you should try the Oroxylin A, because I get a mondo pain relieving effect from that, and I don't really get it from skullcap. Well, what happens for her? I give her my half dose just to be conservative. She doesn't tend to like dopaminergic drugs like I do, and she doesn't have ADHD. In fact, she's like my. It's funny. I'm ADHD person with a scattered brain, and I'm with an OCD person with a brain that is like so concerned about scattered and off things that they correct them. So like we are two halves of one normal functioning brain, right? But she takes this stuff and she tells me that she's having a hard time focusing and she feels sleepy, and I'm like, well, it's a wild card. I mean, and she didn't really get the pain relieving effect, but the next day she tries skullcap. She gets like the pain relieving effect like no other. Like, oh my god, I want to be on this every day all of a sudden. And then she doesn't get the tiredness. So within these drugs within this plant is multiple drugs that do opposing things on each other, and when you're taking skullcap, you're getting this weird amalgamation of all the different effects, and that's why like in say Chinese traditional medicine, they say that it's almost nearly good for everything. Though I think that skullcap is very interesting, especially because of Oroxylin A, and the fact that Oroxylin A seems to be the really powerful arthritis relief one. And currently you cannot just go out and buy that as a supplement and play around with that, but you can buy a cream that is scientifically researched to actually make its way into, say, the joint capsule, which is, I don't know how good that science is, but if you wanted to play with the anti-arthritic superstar of what comes out of skullcap, you could get Oroxylin A cream and try it on yourself, and it's probably going to be very safe and effective. Not that the FDA endorses that statement at this time, but realistically speaking, Oroxylin A could become a patented pharmaceutical medication, and Oroxylin A, I'm not really sure where that's going to go. If it works for me like it does on other people with ADHD, I think it could become a pharmaceutical medication. So, and as far as all the other things in skullcap, who knows? Who knows at this point? We barely understand it. We understand a small percentage of what's in that plant. So now is the time, if any of this interests you, to play with skullcap extracts or isolated compounds, let's say, of that are coming out of it, because we're in this sort of gray area of, is going to become pharmaceutical medication that's patented and costs 10 times as much, or are you going to be able to buy it at your grocery store? We don't know. We don't know where that's going to go. So at this time, you can buy it and try it yourself. But I would recommend that you do lots of research to find out about the safety of it, especially long-term safety. We only Chinese medicine knows about long-term safety, and traditional Chinese medicine is not known for its scientific rigor. So, we would say in Western medicine that it's unknown. As far as skullcap itself, that generally speaking, plants use poisons to defend themselves. That's their primary mechanism. So any plant, any whole plant is definitely should be considered toxic until you know otherwise. With taking skullcap along with other supplements, some people have landed themselves in the hospital with jaundice and very abnormal looking liver tests, but markers, but after stopping taking it, the markers returned to normal, which is good. However, one person ended up with a liver transplant. However, we need to consider that there are probably millions of people taking skullcap around the world on a daily basis. So when you hear about, I've only heard about 6 different reports, or maybe 6 to 10 different reports of actual liver issues, and that's been the only issue, and it's always been when those people were taking it with something else. almost never skullcap alone. I would, based on that, I would say, well, that's not a lot of evidence to say that this is harmful on the long-term usage. That's more like, that's lower than the rate of injuries with, say, a vaccine or actual average pharmaceutical medications. Say like ibuprofen. Probably more people die from liver damage and heart attacks and stuff from ibuprofen, and you can go and buy that at the grocery store, and there's only tiny little warnings on it. Probably more people die from that than from skullcap. So some medical authorities will try to get you scared about it, but then they can only produce about 6 to 10 reports. So I'm not saying that they're full of shit. I'm saying that you can't say there isn't evidence for harm just yet, and there are probably loads of people who have used it. So I would generally call it safe. However, what I would say is, if you experience any kind of liver issues taking anything from skullcap, I would stop it immediately. If you're one of those 0.0000001% people who has some kind of liver issue already, or you can't metabolize it, don't keep taking it, for the love of God. Don't end up in the hospital wondering what's going on with your liver. But again, we only had that happen 10 times. So for every for every person that gets hurt by herbal medication, like on a per million basis, the rate of permanent injury and harm for most drugs that we consider safe is much higher than that. So, but I hope I piqued your interest in skullcap and all the interesting things that come out of it. There's a lot of reading to do, and there's a lot of research to do, and I will definitely get back to you on my longer term than 5 days experience report for taking a half dose of Oroxylin A, which is 50 milligrams, on my ADHD. Did I have any problems? Did it peter out? I don't know. I withdrew over the weekend, and I didn't have any kind of withdrawal effects other than my one scatterbrain. So really, I know that it works for 5 days. When taken for 5 days, it's not a pain in the ass to come off of. It could be that everything works out, but you will find out probably in a couple weeks, a month, or something like that. Because this is too awesome to not talk about. Frankly, this is as awesome as the B12 and then the B complex and then the liver discovery for my own mental health. So hopefully I've given you something interesting. And if you decide to just be a test hamster like me, I want to hear your experiences on Oroxylin A. So, yep, that's it for now, and peace out.